Why Russian tanks are not so effective anymore in the war in Ukraine. A military analysis. Russian tanks have long been a symbol of the country's military might. From the T-34, which played a pivotal role during World War II, to the modern T-90 and T-80 tanks, Russian armored vehicles have been designed to dominate the battlefield with superior firepower, armor, and mobility. However, in the ongoing war in Ukraine, Russian tanks have faced significant challenges. Once regarded as some of the most powerful armored forces in the world, Russian tanks have not only struggled to maintain their dominance, but have also been systematically neutralized by a combination of technological advancements, new tactics, and logistical challenges. This article delves deeper into why Russian tanks are facing increased vulnerabilities, drawing from modern warfare tactics, weaponry, and real-time data from the ongoing conflict. The evolution of anti-tank weaponry. One of the primary reasons Russian tanks have proven less effective in the Ukraine conflict is the rapid evolution of anti-tank technology. In modern warfare, anti-tank guided missiles, ATGMs, have become one of the most lethal threats to armored vehicles. Ukraine has utilized both Western-supplied and domestically produced anti-tank weapons to counter Russian tank movements effectively. The US-supplied Javelin missile is one of the most effective anti-tank weapons currently deployed against Russian armor. It employs a fire-and-forget system, meaning the operator can launch the missile and move away immediately, reducing their risk of being targeted. The missile's top attack profile exploits a significant vulnerability in Russian tanks, their relatively weaker roof armor. The Javelin's warhead, designed to strike the less armored top of tanks, is capable of penetrating much more armor than is necessary to disable or destroy Russian tanks like the T-72 or T-90, which are often equipped with less advanced reactive armor. Ukraine has also utilized the British-made N-Law, next-generation light anti-tank weapon, which has proven effective in close-range engagements. The N-Law can penetrate 500 mm of armor, effectively destroying or disabling Russian tanks in urban combat, where they are most vulnerable. The effectiveness of these systems is evident in multiple reports from the battlefield. Over a significant portion of the war, Ukrainian forces have been able to destroy a large number of Russian tanks using systems like the Javelin and N-Law, highlighting the vulnerability of Russian armored forces to modern anti-tank systems. Tactical failures and vulnerabilities in tank doctrine. Russian tank doctrine has long been based on the massive use of armored columns for breakthrough assaults and fast advances. This approach was effective in the past, particularly in the wide-open spaces of Russia and during the World War II era. However, in the context of Ukraine's more varied terrain, urban warfare, and the widespread use of anti-tank systems, these tactics have proven increasingly ineffective. Urban warfare is particularly challenging for tanks because their firepower and mobility are severely limited by narrow streets, buildings, and debris. The vulnerability of Russian tanks in these environments was dramatically illustrated in the Battle of Kyiv, where a significant portion of Russia's armored forces was destroyed by Ukrainian forces using anti-tank missiles, mines, and ambush tactics. In fact, satellite imagery and videos from the battlefield show multiple destroyed Russian tanks lining the streets, often in large, easily targeted formations. Russian forces, particularly in the early months of the invasion, pushed large tank columns into urban areas, such as Kyiv and Mariupol, believing that their numerical superiority would give them an advantage. However, the dense urban landscape proved to be a death trap for Russian armored units. Cities like Kyiv and Mariupol offered multiple points of attack from elevated positions, allowing Ukrainian forces to employ ambush tactics and attack Russian tanks from above, using both anti-tank missiles and drones. Technological shortcomings. Russian tanks, lacking modern features. While Russian tanks like the T-90 are heavily armored and designed for high-impact engagements, they suffer from several technological shortcomings compared to NATO counterparts. Key areas of concern include fire control systems, active protection systems, APS, and situational awareness technologies. The fire control systems in Russian tanks, particularly the T-72 and T-80 variants, are often outdated. For example, the T-72, which constitutes a large part of Russia's armored force, is equipped with older optical and infrared sights, whereas NATO tanks like the M1 Abrams and Leopard 2 feature more advanced, stabilized systems with greater range and precision. A significant problem for Russian tanks is the lack of modernized targeting systems. The accuracy of Russian tanks in long-range engagements is often lower than their NATO counterparts, whose more advanced fire control systems allow for better targeting of fast-moving or distant targets. This disparity in targeting capabilities means that Russian tanks are less effective at engaging Ukrainian infantry or armored vehicles at a distance, allowing the latter to fire first with more accurate systems. In terms of active protection systems, which are designed to intercept incoming projectiles before they hit the tank, Russia's systems like Stora and Arena have shown limited success. While these systems offer some protection against certain types of threats, they are often ineffective against modern anti-tank missiles and top-attack weapons like the Javelin. In contrast, Western tanks, such as the M1 Abrams, have been fitted with the Trophy APS, which has proven highly effective in neutralizing incoming threats, including RPGs and missiles. This disparity in APS technology highlights the vulnerability of Russian tanks to modern anti-tank warfare tactics. Logistical issues and maintenance challenges. Another significant factor in the diminishing effectiveness of Russian tanks in Ukraine is the strain on logistics and maintenance. Tanks are complex machines that require constant maintenance, particularly during prolonged campaigns. However, Russian forces have faced significant logistical challenges in Ukraine, where fuel shortages, a lack of spare parts, and an overstrained supply chain have caused mechanical failures and immobilized tanks. The freezing winter temperatures, as well as the tough terrain, have also taken a toll on the mobility of Russian tanks. The T-72, in particular, is known for its vulnerability to mechanical failure under harsh conditions, especially when the ground is frozen or when vehicles get bogged down in mud. Multiple reports from Ukrainian sources and military analysts have confirmed that Russian tanks have often been left stranded, abandoned, or destroyed due to mechanical issues, exacerbating the strain on Russian tank units. Additionally, logistical bottlenecks have hampered Russian tank operations. A significant portion of Russian tanks operates far from their supply lines, limiting the availability of fuel and maintenance materials. With roads often blocked by damaged vehicles and winter conditions slowing movement, Russian tanks are more prone to breaking down, leaving them exposed to enemy fire or abandoned altogether. The role of drones and airstrikes in countering tanks. The increasing use of drones in modern warfare has also played a pivotal role in countering the effectiveness of Russian tanks. Ukrainian forces have effectively employed both reconnaissance drones and armed drones to locate and target Russian tanks. Armed drones, like the Turkish-made Bayraktar TB2, have been used to launch precision strikes against Russian tanks, further undermining their effectiveness on the battlefield. Drones allow Ukrainian forces to target Russian tanks from above, where the armor is weaker, and can guide artillery or missile strikes with pinpoint accuracy. The ability to conduct real-time reconnaissance and launch attacks from a safe distance makes tanks much more vulnerable in the current conflict. Ukrainian forces have also used drones to identify Russian tank concentrations, directing fire from artillery and mortars to disrupt the movement of armored units. This combination of drone surveillance and precision artillery fire has proven highly effective in neutralizing Russian tank formations. Morale, training, and command failures. The effectiveness of Russian tanks is also undermined by morale, training deficiencies, and leadership failures. Despite their significant numbers, many Russian soldiers are reported to be poorly trained and lack the battlefield experience necessary to operate modern tanks effectively. In many cases, conscripts and inexperienced personnel are tasked with operating tanks, further compromising their performance. The lack of experienced tank commanders who can adapt to the changing nature of the battlefield has led to numerous tactical mistakes. Moreover, the morale of Russian troops has taken a significant hit as the war has dragged on. The prolonged conflict, coupled with mounting casualties and a lack of strategic clarity, has led to a reduction in combat effectiveness, with many Russian units reporting low morale and reluctance to engage in direct combat. This decline in morale impacts the performance of Russian tanks, as crew members may be less motivated to engage or maneuver effectively under fire. Conclusion: Russian tanks struggling in modern warfare. While Russian tanks, such as the T-72 and T-90, remain powerful machines in terms of firepower and armor, they are facing significant challenges in the war in Ukraine. Modern anti-tank weapons, outdated tactics, technological shortcomings, and logistical difficulties have all contributed to the vulnerability of Russian tanks on the battlefield. The inability of Russian armored units to maintain momentum in the face of Ukrainian ingenuity, NATO weaponry, and superior tactics has exposed the limitations of these once-feared forces. The lessons learned in Ukraine highlight the need for adaptation in Russian armored doctrine. To remain relevant in modern combat, Russia will need to invest heavily in modernizing its tank fleet, updating fire control systems, and adopting more flexible tactics that account for the realities of modern warfare, including the increasing use of drones, anti-tank missiles, and precision airstrikes. Until these changes are made, Russian tanks will continue to struggle on the battlefield, facing increasing vulnerability in an era where precision strikes, advanced weaponry, and flexible tactics dominate the fight.